been in this week's part.
I think we gotta get a map like that.
This is a
Oh, I think you should pass those cushioned seats off to us.
Well, we can certainly take
All
them.
of us with no cushion under our butt. You know, I brought that up at the council meeting. I said, you guys sit for 3.5 hours in those comfortable chairs. I said, why don't we just switch chairs one time, and I'll bet you we'd have cushions on these.
Oh yeah, I bet you're right too. I remember those when we were in Ludington, so they're always that way.
I told him, I said, I even got to the point where I bring my own cushion.
Oh, they're not soft.
Well, I don't have no, I don't have no watch. Every little bit.
Well, I wish I did. Well, hey, welcome everybody.
Hello.
Thank you.
Beautiful day out there, and I'm driving up from Scottville, and I'm going, man, the colors are starting to really rock compared to what they were a week ago. So, but real briefly, again, I appreciate each and every one of you being here. It has been a crazy busy couple weeks down in Lansing. As most of you know, it's been a pretty hot conversation on auto no fault. It's one of our great things. Take a seat anywhere you'd like.
Well, we got a quick bus right on the front row.
You bet. I'll introduce you in just a minute when you Dad gets in.
No, because Dan spilled on his shirt.
But real, you know, it's been busy. I'll give you a brief update where we are in auto no fault. Auto no fault is 2 weeks from being introduced in Lansing. We've had many hours of testimony. We've had several hours of off-site meetings discussing where we are with no fault, what we can do. There's been some amendments that have been added to that bill, some that are being looked at now. I really feel that we've got some positive progress on the bill, that I feel strongly that if we can work together as a group, we can make sure that we get something that's very positive for everybody. The first thing we need to know is that auto insurance is very expensive in the state of Michigan. I hear it every single day. We also need to make sure that if we do any changes to this bill, that we don't have any adverse effects that were unattended. And there, as we read through the bill, it was 78 pages. I will tell you, I made it through twice. Each time I went through, I picked something else out, and there's a couple things that we've added that I know that'll be added into the bill. One's a couple waivers for the insurance companies, that if people opt to go to the lower coverage, that the insurance company's got to follow a step to make sure that they've educated the person so that they know the consequences of either reason why. And one was with the senior citizen package part, and then one on the regular, if you and I decided that we wanted to drop our coverage to a lower, a lot of people have wraparound insurance. But through our discussions with the insurance companies, more and more companies have started to eliminate some of that wraparound insurance. And we want to make sure that they understand that each year when their new insurance policy comes out from their company, that they need to make sure that they're continually being covered. Because if they didn't, they could find themselves into a situation where they don't have the coverage that they thought they had. And then there was a piece for motorcycles, and then we want to add a piece for fraud. Fraud has been an issue that we've all discussed. We know that it's pretty serious. So we're looking at trying to put a piece in there for fraud, to start a fraud authority to make sure that we can get that addressed and make sure we follow through in that, and then an unassigned claim. So we're getting close. I would say that I'm much more positive that we're moving in the right direction on auto no fault than we ever have in the past on both sides. So we're working hard. I'll catch up with you in just a second, all right? And then, you know, we've had some of you have seen we've had a couple of natural resource bills come through. One that I introduced this week in transportation was for folks that renew their insurance or their registration online. It'll give you a period of time to make sure that those tabs come in time, because unfortunately, welcome. Unfortunately, sometimes when you do those things online, you don't get your tabs back by your birthday, and this will give you 30 days grace. So we felt that that was a good piece to add in there. And then the other piece that we added in of transportation this week was a package which was called Prism, and it was for folks that are driving 18-wheelers that are coming in from out of state, other states that may not pass the safety code that Michigan would get onto that panel, that those vehicles would not be able to come into the state of Michigan if they didn't pass safety. So it has been a hectic, busy few weeks. That's kind of what's going on my end. I did want to say welcome to my mom and dad. They drove up from Grand Rapids today to do a little tour, but they're in the front row here, so nice to see mom and dad take a little time to do that. But I'll open it up for questions. I saw somebody raise their hand in the back already, so we'll start right back there.
First, I wanted to thank you for meeting with me again earlier.
Absolutely.
And then on the insurance bill, were you guys able to gain any ground whatsoever on getting them to open the books?
Yes, are you talking on the,
The catastrophic
yes,
fund
we
that
actually got a copy of that, which was 275 pages
Wow.
big.
Nighttime reading.
I'm not reading that one, let me tell you, that one, but we did get a copy of that, and we're going through it as we speak now to see exactly what it reads and how it reads. There's been a lot of discussion inside our meetings of how we can actually have a little more accountability to that possibly that fund would actually go into like a separate account so that we could actually watch it grow, because number one, if you have that much money in a fund and you have it properly invested, we could be paying a lot of bills outside of that. So we're working on some details on that. I will tell you that I am by far not the expert when it comes to reading that manual on the catastrophic fund and the approximately $19 billion that is there.
Is that auto insurance catastrophic
Yes.
or, oh, okay.
Yeah,
Is that unlimited, is that the unlimited portion?
that is the unlimited portion, yep. There's a $19 billion in that fund right now.
What's it, I know we're talking a lot about, and I know you're working hard on the auto insurance, but what's the chances of getting it through the Senate? Everything I hear is that it's never gonna make it, so you're working hard.
Here's ultimately what I tell people, and I'm very honest. If we put the bill through the way it is today, there's zero chance, and I mean zero. However, if we put a bill together that actually we care about in lines of making it the best bill possible, and it goes through the scrutiny of the general public and everybody on the outside, and they feel it's a strong bill, then there's a better chance that it's going to go through, and that's ultimately what we've got to do.
It's on this line.
Okay.
Is there any investigation into the fact if we had healthcare for all in the state of Michigan, that would eliminate the need for the health insurance and the catastrophic health insurance?
Exactly.
Well, how can you even work on this bill without having the health care insurance program in place? Because of the flux of that, how can you even make any laws? Because everything's going to change if if we continue to have health insurance the way that it has been under the Affordable Care Act.
Okay.
There's no reason for me, I pay extra to make my car insurance my primary. And the reason I did that was at the time that there was a $1 million limit. You're gonna hit $1 million in no time in one bad accident. That would wipe out my health insurance for the rest of my life. Republicans are talking about adding that component back in. So I didn't change that, even though I'd like to, because I would drop my premiums.
First off, let's discuss that less than 0.5% ever exceed $1 million.
Would you want it to be you?
Less than 0.5% we're talking about, okay? that exceed that.
Whose data is that from?
That's actually from the insurance companies themselves and the reports that come through. 96% of all accidents are less than $50,000, 96%. So if you go to 99.5%
But
of
then
all
I have
insurance.
then I have a pre-existing condition after I've had my automobile accident, and if I try and get insurance again, I'm screwed. Because if I get injured in my accident, it doesn't matter what my injury
Here's
is, the
deal,
insurance
folks.
company.
We're not gonna go to universal health care. I don't
It's
see
bad.
that happening, and we.
Okay, so we're definitely screwed.
You know what?
I don't know why we can't. That's kinda like, why?
Because number one, I don't think that you could financially afford to pay into it to take care of everybody that needs to be there.
If we did a Medicare for all, it would be affordable, it would eliminate the middleman and it
No,
would be
I
affordable.
think you're misinformed.
I don't think so.
We have examples around the world.
Yeah.
I was gonna
Where it
say,
functions.
Yeah.
It would also bring business to the
You
state
know
of
what,
Michigan.
I hate to tell you, we've talked about this every time we come, folks, every time we've come. It's not gonna happen at state level, and you're talking to the wrong guy. I can't make that change. It's gotta be at a federal level. We can't even get our federal programs set right now.
but how can you do your state insurance without that healthcare piece being in place?
Right now, we get hardly any we get zero Medicaid right now in the state of Michigan for any auto accident. Are you aware of that?
No,
Zero. Zero.
I-
We get no money.
you don't, Medicare I know doesn't pay.
We don't, because we have unlimited right now. All our Medicaid dollars that we're putting in as a state are being shipped to every other state that doesn't have a no-fault. The closest one that has anything to no-fault to what we have is New Jersey at 250,000. And then if you take the rest of the states that go below that, fall 10,000 or below. That's all that there is. And you know what? Then they pay, Medicaid will pay. Unfortunately, the state of Michigan, they say, sorry, Charlie, we're not, you've got unlimited, hands off. Those Medicaid dollars that would normally come into the state of Michigan are gone. They're somewhere else.
I could have one of these.
Here, you take this one. So, I mean, that's the thing we need to understand, is that right now, under our current program, we can't get those dollars anyways.
So what is the highest cap of insurance out there right now? We're unlimited, what's the next
The next
highest?
closest, New Jersey at 250,000.
Is that what the bill says?
Yeah, that's where we're proposing to offer that, 250, 500, and unlimited.
So how are New Jersey's rates nationwide?
I know that the state of Michigan is 82% higher than the average.
Okay,
Yes.
and how do New Jersey's compare?
I don't know, I got something on the mail today that I haven't read through on it that stated all the differences between the other 11 no-fault states and where we sit compared to them. I haven't had time, it just came across, so I can't tell you that.
The bill as it's written now, how much will it reduce our insurance rates?
As it's written right now, here in Manistee County,
Yeah.
depending on what you choose, if you kept the unlimited, it would stay the same. If you drop to the 250 in the personal protection, it's gonna save you about 15% off your policy.
Oh, that's not a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot of risk to take on.
Understand, and that's part of what we're working for to make, that's why I want fraud and some other things that are put into the bill, because now, we also have to understand that it's creeping, I'll get to you, I see it, so I'm not gonna miss it. As we see it, I will tell you this, Kent County, which is not very far from us, in the last 2 years has had the highest increase in automobile insurance in the state of Michigan. They've exceeded the percentage of growth than what Detroit is growing. So, it's creeping closer, folks. This is something we need to be aware of.
And how many deer vehicle accidents do they have in New Jersey?
Probably.
Number one, that doesn't go to no fault, just so you know. That doesn't go on the catastrophic side, so that, I'm assuming that they have deer, so they probably have them, but nothing what we have.
My point.
Yeah, nothing we have. All right, in the very back.
I was wondering, because one of the factors for the increased cost for the auto insurance is they pay a higher cost at the hospitals
That's correct.
than what the medical insurances do. Was
That's
anything
correct.
done to address that at the state level?
That is also a piece of this, is that we've introduced a fee schedule, and we're working on that. And this is where it comes to, if we drop this and we went to Medicaid pay, they're not gonna pay, they go to the lower level. But I'm gonna give you an example, because this is a true example. And this example was in Kent County. If you went in under Medicaid or Medicare, for an MRI, you're paying about $275. If you do it under regular private-owned health insurance, you're about $750. If you go in there in an automobile accident, you're at $3,200. And this is the complaint that we have, is that it's an unlimited cap. So what we are doing right now is we're supplementing the normal cost of healthcare through our auto insurance right now, is what we're doing.
Well, actually, we're getting hit twice, when you think about it, because we pay an extra $184 a year for that catastrophic fund. And now you're saying we're also paying higher individual costs on, towards our premiums and that. That also goes.
Only if it's an auto accident. Only if it's an auto accident.
Right.
If it's not an auto accident, you pay some of them. Just so you know, under an auto accident, we're paying the highest rates under our addressed Medicaid, Medicare. We're one of the lowest states. So, I mean, there's an uneven mix that we need to address.
Are motorcycles included in auto accidents?
No. No, they are not. So if anybody is anybody in here a motorcycle rider? You and I are at risk. I just want you to, especially under the new bill that's been proposed, the only way that you get any money is that you've been struck by another vehicle and you're not at fault. And under the proposed bill, you would get whatever cap amount of value that they have. And if that's it, that's all you get, or if they're uninsured, you may get accepted into unassigned claims, most likely not. If you get hit by a deer and you wipe out on the highway, you get no fault, even though you're paying $170. I did add an amendment in there for motorcycles, because it was missed in the bill, and it addresses that. But currently, the way that motorcycles are kind of booted into a corner that none of us really know how it works, and I'm learning, because I'm a motorcycle rider, and I will tell you, the only reason I even learned anything about this was during testimony, the very last speaker, and we've been there a long, long time. It was late, and he was ending, and he got up, and he was walking away to the table, and he says, "I feel sorry for motorcycle drivers," and he was addressing the audience. And I wrote down motorcycle, and then started making phone calls, and found out under our current situation, we have not the best of the way it works.
Well, shouldn't there be a difference in premiums of whether a motorcycle is wearing a helmet?
There is already. And I will tell you, here's a perfect example. I pay about $400 a year for my motorcycle insurance. 170 of that's for catastrophic fund. The only way that I could ever get a piece of that catastrophic fund is if I was hit by another vehicle. Otherwise, if I missed a corner and wiped out, deer ran out, I hit another vehicle, I don't fall into the catastrophic. That goes on to me and my own personal insurance. It doesn't go into automobile so there's some weirdness in that. Yeah. So, over half of your premium, and I have $5,000 medical coverage, and if I chose not to wear a helmet, I carry $25,000 worth of medical coverage for that.
You have pretty good health insurance as a representative.
Fairly good, yeah. Yes?
What type of testimony do you get during the testimony period, I guess?
Oh, we have.
Who do you get to educate you on insurance?
Well, anybody that wants to come in and speak to us can speak. They come in and sign up. We had folks from the insurance folks from health, folks from rehabilitation centers, general public, those that have been through personal experiences themselves. So you get a huge group all over the spectrum, all up and down all over.
And how long does that take?
The first day of testimony was from 9 o'clock in the morning, and we finished at about 8:30 at night, and we took a 2-hour break in the afternoon for session. Then the next day was 9 to 11.
If you said that it has 0 chance of passing the form it is now, I would assume you're referring to the Senate.
Correct.
But, what's Meekoff's thoughts on this insurance rewriting, I guess you could?
Well, Arlen, or I should say Senator Minkoff, not Arlen, I better clarify that, have only spoke in passing, and their biggest concern is the mandated rollback in costs. He doesn't like the mandated rollback. He'd like to work through the pieces of fraud. That's why I said if we put the right bill forward, they would jump on board. And I really feel strongly that we're working to that direction.
And what's your chances of, I mean, they've been working on this for probably 25, 30 years now.
They have.
What's
With
your
my-
magic formula, I guess, you know?
Well, magic formula, you know,
The Senate just doesn't wanna lose any money.
well, to be honest with you, I don't think it, I'll tell you, the Senate actually put a bill out last year that the House rejected. And there was very little play on that. Right, here's the ultimate is we somehow gotta figure it out. Either we repeal it 100%, go back to the old system and let, like every other state does, or I should say,
Do away with
you know, do away with it, go like the other 38 states out there and let people go buy their own insurance and then buy policies up and above, you know, whatever limit they wanna put in.
There you go.
Is that, do we wanna do that, or don't we wanna? Personally, it's failed. When that came to the ballot, 2 times it's been on the ballot, it failed. But I will tell you, I mean, I think if we did a show of hands in here, everybody in this room is gonna say, you gotta do something about my insurance costs because they're killing me. And you know
What year
what?
was that on the ballot?
Pardon?
What year was that on the
I
ballot?
can't remember the year. I think the last time it was in there was in the 80s.
Yes.
And I do believe there's movement now to repeal it. We talked about it, should we just put it on the ballot? And I think there's a portion inside that room that go, we're afraid if we did. There's a portion that say, let's just do it, let the people make a choice. It's a large animal, and I'm not, you know what, I thought, you know, I'm kind of a common sense guy when I go in there and say, oh, you know, this piece of cake, oh my gosh, and then you get in there and you realize everybody's got a piece of it because of their district or a personal experience from it. And ultimately what it comes down to is we've never really sat down as a group, and this time we are. And
If we repealed it, what would happen to the $18 million in the catastrophic?
It would be left in that fund to pay for all the people that are on, and then we'll have to figure out what it's gonna cost us to fund the extra money that we're gonna run short. Because it will not fund who's currently on it now.
What's wrong with letting the public make their own decisions?
That's what we want them to do through this bill.
Well, can't you just eliminate it and let us make our own decisions?
No, we can't, unfortunately.
Not possible, no.
Because if
Like
that's
the other
everyone.
38 states, we can't,
We can't just come in and blatantly do that as we just can't, because the public voted it in, so the public's gotta vote it out.
Excuse me.
Yes, sir.
Our state legislature, since 2010, has already overturned 3 ballot proposals that
You
were
betcha.
approved
Yeah,
by
I
the
agree with
people.
that.
Yeah.
Basically had it tossed out, put it back in the way they wanted it, added that appropriation on it, and then took it out of our hands entirely
I
after
mean,
that.
so we could not vote again on it.
That's-
Yeah.
And, I would like to think you wouldn't be a part of that, because this happened before you got in, so I'm not, you know. But,
Well, I hope I'm not a part of that, but I will tell you this. On this piece of legislation, there's no, we can't agree with it now. There's no way that we're gonna vote it out, because we can't get it out now. So it's gonna have to come to the general public, just like legalizing marijuana is gonna come to the general public. I mean, these things, they're gonna go to the public, they're gonna make their decisions, and, you know, I'm sure, I've heard the stories, and we can go back and look, but I can tell you, rest assured, this one's not gonna get done like that, yes.
Isn't there anything else that can be done about, keeping people, you know, they buy their no-fault insurance and then they relicense their vehicle, and then they cancel it or don't pay?
Here,
There's
that's a
no
great, I'm
feedback
glad that you're
about
bringing that up,
Yeah.
because this is exactly where we're at, and this is the
Yeah.
piece that's getting added in
Okay.
as an amendment. If a person comes in, and this is part of what we got, we know that we've got about 1.3 uninsured drivers in the state of Michigan right now this minute. But and how they get their tabs and how they get their registration is they go in, order it from their insurance company, go to the Secretary of State, prove they get it, get their tabs. About 10 days later, they call up and say, hey, you know what, I decided I'm not gonna drive anymore, cancel my insurance. They live a year, next year, they gotta go in.
Pick a different insurance company.
We put it into the system that if this person tries to register that vehicle again, we've now tracked them, because we are tracking them today,
Good.
sending them letters. If they try to go in and do it again the following year, it'll pop up in the system, and they become a prepaid customer. You prepay for 6 months, or you get no insurance.
Okay.
And that's where we've gotta work. We've gotta go that direction, because that's a big part of the fraud side.
Yeah,
And we're paying for that.
yeah.
Yes.
We got about a
Oh,
half
I'll
hour
get,
left.
you're next. You're next. I'm gonna get the young lady behind you. Then I'll be with you. I'm sorry.
It's an interesting punishment system you're putting in place here, because my thing is, why aren't you going after the 7-day insurance companies?
That's already illegal, by the way. It's already illegal.
Then why aren't we enforcing the law? Because you can walk into a Secretary of State's office in Lansing, and right next door will be an insurance company, and it will have right on their window, 7-day insurance.
Tell me where. Tell me where, and we'll turn them in, because that's illegal as of this
Michigan
year.
Avenue.
Michigan Avenue
Michigan
where?
Avenue, East Lansing, at the Secretary of State Super Center.
Okay.
I think it was LA Insurance or something like
And
that.
how long ago was that?
No, I mean, but they do.
Nobody has noticed
no,
that,
they-
have they?
But there's,
Yeah.
We passed a law this year in legislation, no more
Okay.
7-day. So if they're still doing it today, they're doing it
Okay.
illegal, and I have a hard time believing it. All right, I'm to you now, I'm
We got
sorry.
about a half hour left, so I want to bring up two topics.
Great.
That I hope they get covered. One is education with the legislation about charter schools being able to draw off money from intermediate school district millages.
Okay?
I just want to make the point that I think that's the wrong approach, making charter schools and public schools fight each other. I think we really need to look at education. States that pay more for education seem to have a better educational system. I think we need to get that in our heads. That's one, yeah, can I bring up the other topic so it's on the floor? Yeah,
You're talking about Senate Bill 378, I believe it is?
yeah, it's right here in the
No, I
newspaper.
got
Well, you have 574 also.
574.
That brings money to charter schools.
So that, yeah, so the other topic, just to bring it up, so I hope we get some coverage on it, is that I just read yesterday, and I think it was on NPR, it might have got out of Scientific American magazine, but there's a study that kind of shows, no, it doesn't kind of show, it shows that the cost of pollution in terms of making people sick and the amount of deaths from pollution exceed any other known killer. And I think that's real news, because I don't think hardly anyone knows that. And that's a real issue in an industrial state like ours. And I think, I want you as a representative state government to address that issue. I don't wanna die from pollution.
And I have a related question to the second topic.
And I don't think any of us do. Senate Bill 570, I thought it was Senate Bill 378, is that also on there?
I
I just got I will tell you, I just got a copy of my last one, I have not read that one. No, I've got it. I was handed to me in Scottville, I haven't read that one yet. I will tell you, the other one that I know that just passed the Senate, one of them just passed.
Yeah, that's
and I-
574.
574. I will tell you that, I've had several superintendents make a phone call to me and ask me to support that bill, and I just printed it out to read it. And then I got a copy today, so I honestly can't give you, and I don't know enough about it right now to read about, I haven't read the bill through, I just printed it out of my office because I just received the phone call yesterday.
Well, the point simply that I was making was that it's the wrong approach. We need to look at how we can improve, education's going down the tubes in Michigan, look at the results. We need to improve education in Michigan. Education's a proven winner in terms of job creation. We're really being foolish to let our educational system go down the drain.
Amazon's gonna be looking at that, when they're making a decision, they're gonna be looking at our school system.
Who's that?
Amazon, as
Yeah.
Grand Rapids and Detroit are trying to
Right.
roll that order in, they're gonna be looking close.
That and our
We're not looking
infrastructure.
good.
And our workforce.
Our workforce, yep.
Yes, they're in the back.
As a former school employee, one of the problems they had, we had some budget problems. So the employees, we got to look at the budget. And what had happened is after a school of choice came into effect, I noticed in our school budget at the time, this was down in Onstead, they had a section for advertising. And I thought, what is this for? It says, we have to compete with the other schools now to get students here. So now, money that normally would have went into maybe supplies or other issues, now had to be spent for newspaper ads, television commercials. And I'm thinking, that's crazy. And now, they're looking at, we're gonna have to share the money with the for-profit schools out there.
Which is crazy, that's our public money.
That wasn't intended for in the first place.
Well, first off, I know that you say they're for-profit, but you do understand they follow all the rules that the public
Doesn't
school
matter, it's
system
still
does.
for a profit.
The thing of it is they're still allowed to withhold information because the state has not forced them to comply like they have the rest of the public schools for them.
And in line, when you say the state hasn't forced them to comply, I'd like to understand where you're saying that's from, because from everything I see, they have to comply with they have to meet the same standards of testing, they have to pass the same amount, they can educate in a different fashion, but they still gotta
The ones
meet all the
that-
Same
standards.
number of disabled students educated with
Right.
the same level of mainstreaming?
Well, I will tell you that the percentage, if you wanna take that example, is G2S, and in Scottville has a higher rate than the 3 public systems.
Scottville's a very small place.
Well, I'm just saying, be careful when we blanket statement, okay?
But there's
These
a
are the
lot
things
going
that we
on
can,
with students, too.
hold on.
Yeah.
Give me a minute here, because this is, I've always said, there's always many sides to the stories. Don't read just one side, okay? I read both sides, and I make an educated guess, and I will tell you that sometimes when I'm down there and I'm fighting, I'll get phone calls that I hear that you're fighting this. Well, no, I'm making it stronger. I'm trying to make it stronger down there, and ultimately we get to a proper bill, or we get to the proper, where everybody's happy. But you know what, you don't get there if you read just one side. And too many times, we're stuck here, and this is the only thing I'm gonna believe in, and I'm never gonna read this because I think that's crap, right? I mean, honestly, if we get down to it, you'll waste one paragraph, read one thing, you won't fight your way through the whole article. I'm gonna tell you, I'll fight through that article all the way, and you can pull out some stuff that's good on both points. And I get very disappointed when we get very shallow, and I've said this before.
I think most of us read everything. I know I do.
Well, I'm gonna compliment you on that, because I will tell you, most will not, because I can actually go into an article that they read the first paragraph that they're quoting, and they don't know the rest of the article. Now, and we need to get better at that, and I'm challenging people on it, because we cannot continue to live on one side or the other. We've got to get to the right side to make sure that all of us, and I don't mean it like that, that's to the middle, that we got proper education on both sides.
It goes to his point earlier about where you get your information,
Right.
informational sources.
And you know what, and I will tell you, if you guys knew how many hours I spent and how many hours I spent reading on auto no fault, I can, and I've only scratched
Good
that
thing you have a
far.
good Michigan education under your belt.
Yes, my father was an educator and so was my mother, so I appreciate that. I'll grab the lady in the back and then I'm coming to you.
I have asked this question before about parity in school funding in the foundation grant. Even here in Manistee County, we have disparity. We have Manistee at $7,631 per student, and then Onekma at $8,282 per student. Bloomfield Hills is at $12,124.
Correct?
When is Manistee going to receive the $12,124?
Never. Never. It's under Proposal A. And under, what happened when we passed Proposal A, they had industry and they taxed, and their base pupil funding, we're still short of that, and we are doing 2 times funding to get to the base. Economically, through Proposal A, unfortunately, we're not going to get to Bloomfield because we don't have that base. Onekma, most people aren't residents there, pay the highest rate there is for taxes, so they get higher, they're out of the formula. Our goal, and I will tell you, is if you paid attention, I voted against the school budget in the process this year because they were gonna take 2 times funding away from our district, which would have crushed our district.
It would have.
And I fought for it, we got 2 times funding back in and we got the at-risk money brought back in, and here's the reason I fought on the at-risk. Now, it didn't affect Manistee, it was almost a break even. But you take my Frankfurt, Alberta school system, 100 grand vanished out of their budget, under the proposed budget. Glen Lake, 100 grand. Sutton's Bay, 50 grand. You take 100 grand out of a Frankfurt, Alberta school system, and what does it do to the system? You know what, you have to, this is the thing that you hired me to go in and do a job, and I'm fighting to do the right things for the right reasons. You know what, when we got done with it, you know how many people came up to me throughout, we're really proud that you bit the bullet for us. And you know what I say? Bit the bullet for you, I bit the bullet for my people in town because I'm not gonna accept that. That's why I'm here. And you know what, you gotta fight for these things to do the right reasons for everybody. And I understand that we think pouring more money into an education system is gonna save the system. You know what? That's not, right now, there's more to our education system problems than money, folks. I can tell you, money, if you wanna know the real truth of it, is the smaller part of the problem. We have a social issue right now. And you know what? Until we fix that social issue, we're gonna struggle in some of our school systems. I mean, I don't know how else to put it, but it's true, and we've gotta pull that into our system right now and understand we gotta fix some of these things. Yes?
Wait a minute.
Hold on.
Wait a minute.
I'll get to you in a minute. I'll get to you in a minute, okay? Hold on, I'm gonna get to her, I'll come back to you.
And I understand that, because I am a retired educator, and I know that there is a social problem that affects what's happening in the school system. But when I'm looking at, poverty, that's a big one. Okay. Big one, poverty.
Well,
Poverty, drugs,
you've got poverty, you've got drugs,
phone use.
you've got,
Broken families.
People
I
working
mean, these
3
are,
jobs.
right, these are all parts of it. I will tell you, we can go on, there's many things that go into the social side of it. And you know what, part of it, we don't have to go very far back to see when we started. I mean, we see where it's gone. I mean, we've taken so many things, well, you can't do this, you can't do this, but then you get into the social side of it, and we have, you know, unfortunately, we have single parents out there that are put into a situation. We've got sporting, I mean, it used to be a privilege. We all thought it was great to be out there on the swim team playing basketball. Now, all of a sudden, you've got kids, families that can't afford to put their child into the program. So mom or dad makes a decision that they're gonna go out and buy a PS2. It's easier for them. They don't have to do that. Kids can stay home when they're working. Well, you know what? I can give you an example, and we smile about it, but here's a true statement from one of my sheriffs. We have a young man that calls in a bomb threat to a school, and they trace him down and they find him, the FBI comes in, they wanna, and the sheriff sits there and says, let me talk to him, and this says to the young man, you know, why did you do this? He says, you know, he says, I sit around all day and I play PS2, and when you shoot people and they get back up, I lost it, I wanted to do something, gave me excitement. And this is something that we're fighting through, and he says to this young man, he says, well, what's the thing you really wanna do? He goes, well, I don't have a dad, I wanna fish. And the sheriff took him out fishing. But you know, these are the things that cause issues inside the system, and they're not easy to fix. Yes?
But, you know, that, definitely, that's part of what's going on. What I'm concerned about was with this bill that the Senate has put forth, 574, that with enhancement funds that schools might ask for with the special millage, that charter schools could apply for those enhancement funds. Now, I've seen how we've diminished field trips, mentors for teachers, even the number of counselors per students in our local school system. We used to have 2 counselors, 9-12. We have 1 counselor, 6-12. And as you said, we need more counselors to help students, not fewer. So I'm concerned that this is another way for charter schools to say, give me a little of that money, and it's just further just pulling at what resources the public school has, and those have dwindled.
Right, let me ask you a question. If Manistee had an enhanced millage, how many people do you think would support that?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I think that we know.
We did get a school built here,
Right.
Yeah.
you know, we got a brand new school, we got.
But, you know, these are the
It's
things,
ISDY.
right, these are the things that, you know, as we, you know, I understand. Like I said, I just found out about the bill, so I wanna be very careful on how I answer
I'm concerned that you
it.
consider that when
I
you're
did
looking
talk
at
to the
that.
superintendent at length, and, you know, because he was very interested in it, and I said to him, I said, I would certainly, you know, support helping you with an enhanced millage, if that's what it is, but I need to know more about that bill, before I just run out there and willy-nilly say, oh, I wanna go support 574, and I'll be a marching soldier for you. So, I'm gonna get to this person right here, you, I did? Okay.
That's the second part of his other.
Curt, I wanted to follow up a little bit. I know you try to do the right thing. Is it right that higher ed pulls funds from the K-12 budget?
The higher ed side is always a topic of discussion. I forget what the budget was this year when we approved it. It was pretty high for higher ed, but it's always been a separate piece. It shouldn't, in the budget, it's not a piece, you know, K through 12 is their own budget, and then higher ed has their own budget, so.
It's a line item.
Right, it's a line item, but you know.
Doesn't it come from the funds collected for K-12, or is it just out of the state budget?
It's out of the funds that go from education, period, but I would have to, you know, I better be careful on that. I'll look into that and hopefully can get an answer. But I know that there's a lot of discussion about higher ed. Yes, sir.
I read Daniel Howells in the Detroit News this morning that talks about the $7 billion that the governor had proposed for 3 economic development projects, which raises a number of issues. A, where's the $7 billion going to come from? If it's simply giving money to corporations like Foxconn or whoever, and then what's the accountability? I'd like to know, and I'm sure your office can provide this, how much money have we, through Michigan Economic Development Corporation and all other entities already granted, who follows up? If they promise, well, we're gonna bring in 50,000 jobs, does anybody count those jobs?
Great question.
Where's the accountability and
Great
why
question.
doesn't the accountability come out of the state legislature?
Well, you know what, here's a great, what you just said on that portion that's already in the budget. There is a concern there in my part that we don't follow up. Now, under the new package that was just pushed through, there are standards that they have to follow, and that was a good jobs package. And there's X amount of dollars that are available, but they have to hit minimum standards, and they've got to hit at least 100% of the average wage. They have to make sure that there's a minimum of 200 jobs that are maintained for a full calendar year, or they get 0. There is a system in place for that. There is some other concerns.
But there's
Yeah,
still
go ahead.
nothing about the
Can I
abandoned
follow-
buildings.
Can I
that they
follow
need.
that line of thought, sir?
Yeah, go ahead.
How do I, as a citizen, know that? How do I get that information? Where's it disseminated?
Well, there will be a report on that, but I'll follow up and make
Where's
sure.
it get disseminated?
You know, in regards to that, the MEDC, which is the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, has been realigned or reorganized over the years. And in the past, they would not have nearly the control that they do now. And other people, in the past, they'd give you money and then you would try, and then they wouldn't follow up on the money that they give you. Now, you're not gonna get money from the MEDC until you meet the criteria that you said you were gonna meet. The money has been delayed before you get it, okay? So basically, what they're saying is, give me $200,000 for 12 jobs. Well, they say, well, you produce the 12 jobs, we'll give you the $200,000. That's the way it's set up now,
A year later,
which is much better than it was in the past.
I would suggest we need more accountability, which is part of a larger problem with the state of Michigan's governmental system.
And abandoned buildings, once they leave.
As you're aware, Michigan has the lowest ranking for transparency in government.
Well, as you know, I passed the bill within the first month of being here, and it's still sitting in the Senate.
Well,
I don't disagree with you.
unless somebody kicks some ass, and I got no shoes.
Here, let me help you.
Seriously, I am so disappointed in the state of Michigan for being so deliberately non-transparent.
Yep.
When Senator Meekhoff says the people don't care, well, you tell him you met a guy in Manistee who cares.
More than one.
More than one.
I think we've been given the shuck and jive, and you say, well, the legislature will take care of it. I have my lack of confidence in that, because the track record, two things that have been mentioned by other people, the people vote one way, the legislature does something else, does a shuck and jive with the appropriations component of it, and takes it away from the people. I think that's dead wrong. I also think it's dead wrong that the legislature takes local control away from municipalities, school districts, well, at least school districts are, but counties, by saying, you can't pass this law. Republicans used to say, solutions are found at the place closest to the problem.
They did.
Now Michigan is Michigan legislature is saying, solutions are up here where we are, not where you are. Now, that's a flip-flop that I find trouble. And it ties into the whole idea of lack of transparency. I don't have a lot of confidence that as many times as you read that bill, your colleagues are gonna come up with anything that's really gonna do anything for us.
Well, as you've seen, if you followed, that anything that's come to take away local control, I voted against so far. And I can say that with confidence. I will tell you that I understand. No, but I'm.
Your colleagues.
You know what, and I do understand. I will tell you, here's part of what we get. In the old days, people came through rank and file. work their way up, they learn the system, and if they decided they wanted to go further, they went further. I was in county government, that's the thing I complained about all the time, is you implement a policy and a law, and you send it down to the local level and say, now you figure out how you're gonna pay for it. Well, there's only a couple ways you pay for it, you either cut or you raise taxes. So you got your two choices, so.
Did you along those lines vote against 4205?
4205.
That's the bill to decline all our environmental regulations and defer them to the federal level.
Hold on. I don't know where you got that piece of information. It must be something that people are out, because I got a copy of that today.
Yeah.
4205 means that the Michigan standard cannot be less than the federal, but it can be greater. That's what 4205 is.
No, it's the opposite.
No, that is not true, and I will tell you this, the person.
I read the bill on the.
I did too.
4205.
I read 4205.
And the 4205 is our standard. Our standard cannot be less than the federal.
It cannot be more.
Incorrect.
It cannot be more, and only in an emergency
Right, and that's wrong, and that's why I'm
situation
gonna
can it
call
be
the bill
higher.
sponsor and verify it again, but I will tell you that was not.
I read it this morning,
Okay, well,
4205.
I'm just,
From the,
That's
cannot be
fine.
more.
that's fine. And that came from, I can pull it out here.
No, I pulled it right off the bill, off your legislative.
Yeah, 4205. It cannot, it's fine, it can be. Yes, Mike?
Curt, I want to thank you for being here, and I want to tell you, I'm proud to be an American and I'm proud to be a Republican, which probably puts me in a very small percentage of this. My question is, we're talking about charter schools and public schools. When you start looking at the test scores, who wins? I don't know what Curt thinks, I don't care what you think.
I can't answer that question right now, Mike, with I just can't answer that question of who wins right now in the testing model. I can't. Right now, our whole testing philosophy in the state of Michigan is a bunch of baloney. And you know what? It's been done through the Department of Education, and I don't care if it offends people or doesn't offend people, but you cannot set a standard inside any school system and every 2 years come up with a new test, because it basically just blows things out of the water.
Yeah, that's right.
And you know what? As an educator out of a family, I can attest that, you know, when we grew up, we only had a few tests. We got 22 of them now. Some odd number, 22 test days inside our system. When you change tests and you don't allow those tests to have a mark of history, you're chasing different philosophy all the time, and that's not what our system was ever built on.
No database.
Right, you can't do it, and I tell people, you know, we get people that chew out this system, well, then we change it, and you know, the next thing you know, we've never get to a consistent standard of measuring our children. And you wanna know what? That's a problem. You know what the other problem is that, and it goes back to the counselor side. You know what? You look at other nations around us, they have a counselor in there, and you know what? They'll come up to a parent and they'll say, you know, I hate to say this, but Johnny needs to go in this direction. I'm gonna tell you, in the state of the United States of America, if you said, I'm sorry, your child really doesn't cut and needs to go over here, we would have, you know what we'd have? We'd have lawsuits going all over, you're holding my child back, he's gonna excel at this. But you know what, we talk about wanting to do, education's a huge part, folks, and we've gotta be willing to, you know, I'd love to see a true career counselor in every school system, that person, and you know what, we wait until they're in high school? We wait until high school to help determine where a child needs to go. They need to be,
Not everybody needs to go to college, there's a lot of trades that
right,
need.
and I've been a huge trade proponent, each and every one of you know that.
Yes, yeah.
And you know what, we need to be working with our school systems when these kids come into school at 6th grade to give them their hands on, because you know what, there's unbelievable jobs out there. If we give them the special training, they can make more money than a person that's ever gone to college.
Certainly a high school teacher. They can beat them.
Well, don't deny that. Don't deny that. I'm not, and you know what, I'm not gonna argue what you say, but if you start looking at other, but we're getting off track, so. I'm gonna go to this person, it's 11 o'clock already, and I'm trying, I give myself a little bit of room, but this is the first time I've ever tried to do 4 in one day, because I have 2 other events up in Leelanau County tonight that I need to be at, so I'm trying to do 4 coffee hours in one day, so it's gonna be a very interesting day, but, question?
I understood you to say that you favored solving problems at the most local level.
Try, yes.
Try to. What are your feelings about combining mental health Medicare payment with physical health Medicare payment? There was a bill that came up on that.
I don't know where that bill, I'm unaware of the bill, so it probably didn't make it out of committee. And here's the deal. I very seldom, until we get into a meeting like this, like I did at the last meeting, somebody gave me 3 bills, I'll go look at those. But if they don't come out of committee inside the House side, I honestly, there's too many bills, there's no way I can read them all. I try to read when I know that they've actually been sucked up and they brought into committee and they're being heard testimony on, I will spend the time to read the bill. I could not physically.
All the minutes and all the hours of all the days.
There's no way, because I will tell you, reading the no-fault bill, 78 pages, and I read it through twice because it took me a full day, because you can't grasp everything out of it. And then out of it spurred other pieces that I needed to read, and I will tell you, short story on that. The fraud, I had a gentleman that says, I've got a bill out there for, fraud authority. So I read his bill one night, got home from office at 9 o'clock, read the bill, woke up in the middle of the night and it's laying in the bed next to me. Slept, got up at 5 o'clock, read the bill through again, texted him at 6:30 in the morning. He and I were texting back and forth because I'd like to add an amendment to it. But I mean, so I very seldom, unless somebody comes to me and challenges me on a bill that came out of the Senate or just is being entered, I don't read it because I can't physically do them all. So.
And did 4205 make your list? You're gonna.
4205 is in my briefcase right now. A person handed it to me.
You can read it right now.
Yeah. One quick question. I know you've said that you're pro line 5. What are your thoughts about drilling in the Great Lakes?
I would say that I would be opposed to drilling in the Great Lakes. We've had that proposed before, and that's not a great idea.
They even tried slant drilling where they drove from on land and went under the lake.
Couple more questions and I'm gonna have to.
Do you know how many oil wells are in Manistee County?
No, I don't.
There are over 700 oil wells in Manistee County because we're part of the Niagaran Basin.
Okay.
So those issues go directly to his pollution question, and not just corporation pollution, but the pollution standards that the state holds for those oil and gas drillers, tank farms, and pipelines, other than Line 5, but including Line 5, because Line 5 is not in Manistee County.
Right back.
That day that I talked to you, I'd also talked to Senator Luder right after that, about the condo issues and that. Both of you pretty much had the same response. You felt that was better left to the community control, which I thought was a good idea. Since that time, I've discovered the state Senate has already involved themselves in Spring Lake, I think is where the case is at. They want to overturn the township's control over what they wanted to do with it. And that's the concern I have now, is that the state
Is interfering.
is gonna come back if they don't like what the township's doing, or the city or whatever, they're gonna say, we're taking that away from you, we're gonna make the decision.
Give me what it pertains to and I can educate myself, but.
It's reminiscent of the water problem in Flint. The state basically said, you people don't know what you're doing with your water, we're gonna fix it for you.
The on prevailing wage laws, they went after those, the communities that did it, I think Ann Arbor was one of those. And that's just an example. My concern was on the conduit issues. And you kind of restored some of my faith when you said you're against that sort of thing.
Right.
What do we do to counter that? Like when the state senate wants to go full on the China shop and do it, do it like they're doing now.
Call your senator.
Well, I gotta wait for him to come back down for the next one here.
Yeah.
You can call him personally though,
Yes,
you
you
can call
can.
his office and my thing, I'm unaware of the Spring Lake issue, I'll check into it, but I don't know
I
anything
can,
about
I
that, but
can
the checks.
email you that one, the Free Press had an article on it,
Okay,
because that was one of the things that got us going in the first place.
It's going on all over the state, actually. It's becoming a big problem.
I'm unaware of it, so I honestly can't, I'd love to be able
Yeah,
to
I mean,
make a
it
comment.
sounded like a good solution to me at the time when I was up there, and then when I get home and I look into it further, it's kinda like they're pulling the rug out from under us.
Well,
So,
I don't know what you're, like I said, I'll check into it. A couple more and then I've gotta move on to Benzie. Yes,
What about Sandhill cranes being fair game?
well, first off, we passed a resolution that between the state and the federal government, they can look at it, there's a possibility they need to establish a hunting season for sandhill crane, they can. Doesn't mean that there's going to be, probably won't be for a period of time. But, right now, the population of that bird and the damage they're creating to the farmer is becoming an issue.
I thought we only had like 25,000 in the state.
If you go on to the DNR website, they did a study and it looks like there's a population of about 43,000.
43.
It's wonderful to watch those birds and they make the greatest calls. And for some reason this year, our local birds haven't been around and I really miss them. So
Sandhill cranes?
Sandhill cranes. So
They're
I just
down
like
the
the
end of my
idea
road.
of hunting sandhill cranes. I understand they taste very good. Well, okay, go out to Nebraska and hunt them, okay?
Well, and there's a check and balance. Right now, the state is issuing, and here's the other part that always is a concern. And we're working on some legislation on that, but right now they're giving nuisance permits away for sandhill crane. But if a farmer takes that sandhill crane because they're causing a problem, he has to leave that bird right where it lays, call the DNR, and that bird rots where it was taken, which is not. But I would hear, when this was proposed to us, on the week before, the following week, I met with a group of farmers, talked to them about the issue, is there an issue? And they said, yeah, we do have a problem, and there's no question about it, that the flock is growing and it's causing issues. I met with another individual farmer and asked him if there's a problem on his farm, and he goes, actually, he says, I'm very fortunate. He says, I don't, but he says, hop in my vehicle and let's go a half a mile down the road to my neighbor. There was 40 of them in the field that day, and he says, we can watch when we plant, a week after we plant, we can watch this flock of 40 go through.